Let's talk now to Professor Dapo Thomas. He is an international relations expert and lectures at the Lagos State University. He joins us virtually. Thank you very much, Prof. Good morning to you. Are you able to hear me, Prof?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Can hear you.
Thank you very much for your time this morning. I wanted to start by asking you, do you think now Turkey is proposing peace talks? Do you think both sides, after these 13 weeks of grueling fighting and all the damage and destruction and all the losses, will be ready to sit down?
Well, there is no time that this process cannot take place. Diplomacy is always constant in any situation, whether it's a war scenario or whether it's a normal conflict. But whatever it is, I still believe that because the two parties would realize that this war cannot continue this way. They have to end it one way or the other, and it has to be through dialogue, and it has to be through this kind of peace process, which Erdogan is trying to coordinate. I only think and pray that he will be able to achieve some laudable objective. I mean, some progress, or just let us believe that he will make some progress this time around, because the first one was a big flop. But this time around, let us believe that he will have reflected on what happened during the first process, and then maybe he has already plugged all the holes, which should be plugged to achieve some meaningful progress during the second peace process. And I believe that he is likely to make some headway, because I believe that some of the issues that arose, possibly on the Russian side and on the Ukrainian side, will have been addressed by now. And that's why he's confident that can go on for the second meeting.
Factors, shall we call them, that President Erdogan is not in control of. There are some, pardon my use of that pun, flies in the ointment. One of them is the European Union, which has just announced an agreement. Just as President Erdogan was proposing these talks, it has just announced an agreement to ban 2/3 of Russian oil exports, going up to 90% by the end of this year. So there are disincentives for either party to participate. Russia itself has increased its attacks at almost the same time and has moved to looking for customers elsewhere. So President Erdogan may have a really tough task at this point, because there are others who, pardon my statement in this respect, don't want the war to end at this point.
Well, don't forget it's a war. So, and for as long as the war is still intense this way, it is still going to continue to be like that. However, those who are engaged in the conflict, those who are fighting the war, will still continue. It does not stop this process. It does not stop engagement. It is a constructive, peaceful engagement. So they will still be talking, and then the war will still be going on. For as long as they have not discussed a kind of ceasefire, well, maybe it is during the discussion, during this particular meeting that Erdogan is trying to put in place, that they will now be thinking of discussing a ceasefire first. Because I believe that it is inappropriate for the war or for Russia to continue to shell some of these cities and then still be talking. So maybe the first thing that the Ukrainians are going to push for will be a ceasefire. There must be a ceasefire so that at least everybody can, the two parties can see how far they have gone and what the extent of damage, and then take assessment, take account or recording of what has happened or what has transpired. And as such, it does not stop the peace process. So whether EU is imposing ban of 90% or not does not stop the peace process. The peace process will be going on. Sanctions can even be going on for as long as it is not the party that is initiating the peace process that is also taking actions. Or, Erdogan has been a bit neutral. In any case, he is completely neutral, and that's why he can call for this kind of meeting. So he's not part of all the decisions that EU has been taking or NATO has been taking. He's a member of NATO too. And then he has not actually aligned himself to some of the decisions or some of the actions taken against Russia. And that is why, because of his neutrality, everybody feels that, well, he's the only person who can initiate that place. It's definitely not US, not NATO, not EU. So he is an influential member of NATO. He's a very influential member. And, we are still speculating whether he was going to allow Finland and Sweden to be members of NATO. So everybody knows that he has to be pacified. And as such, he too is playing some kind of influential role in the ongoing peace process. And if he knows that if he is able to achieve something credible, something constructive, something substantial in this war, then his name will go down in history as the mediator and the peacemaker. I don't think that those factors are sufficient enough to stop him from doing his peace process engagement. He's going to continue with the peace engagement. So nothing is distracting him. He was persistent in the first, and then the second one that is initiating now. So it now depends. But first, I would suggest that it should be, well, it's not the person that will talk about ceasefire. It may happen during the meeting, but I believe that India and co, and maybe China, and even the US, well, the US has tried its best, because I know that the defense secretary was in constant touch with his counterpart in Russia, and he was asking for a ceasefire, but which Moscow has declined. So I think that the peace process issue can be discussed while the meeting is on. So dialogue can still go on, war can still continue, pari passu. The two can go pari passu, but I believe that in order to achieve any constructive result or objective from the peace process or from the peace meeting, there must be some ceasefire.
That then leaves something which you said in your answer there. The United States has been in touch with Russia about a ceasefire, but then the United States is asking for a ceasefire at the same time as it is participating in the tightening of the screws on Russia and continuing with the aid, military and otherwise, to Ukraine. So in terms of, you're an international relations expert, and in terms of encouraging diplomacy, I am told that to help the two sides see peace talks as a viable alternative, some carrots ought to be shared to both sides to encourage them to move towards peace. So the question is, what kind of carrots can President Erdogan offer, since he's neutral, he's not aiding either side? And as you pointed out, it is actually China and India on one hand, and then the United States, Britain, France, Germany, and the others on the other. What carrots can all those people bring to the table to encourage both sides, even if it is to agree first to a ceasefire, to allow the atmosphere cool down, to encourage talks?
Well, the only person that can be appeased now is Moscow, is the Kremlin, is Putin. That's the only person that can be appeased now, that can be pacified now, or that can be spoken to. They need to talk to him, because it's not, the Ukrainians are defending. They are not the ones attacking. They are defending. So you need to talk to the person that is attacking to cease, to stop. So if he does not stop, then that's unfortunate. However, don't forget that everybody, Modi, Xi Jinping, US, Erdogan, and the Macron, they have all spoken to, even Boris, even Johnson, they have all spoken to Putin but he has declined. He has refused. So he is the only one who knows his game plan. But you know, I said something when I gave a lecture on this, that my own position is that the major agenda is what I call wasteland agenda. It's a wasteland agenda. He actually wants to level the whole of Ukraine if he's given the opportunity. And you know, now because it is every time that he continues to intensify his attack, to continue to shell, and then he deliberately fires at residential buildings. The whole agenda is just to waste that land. That's why I keep believing that it is a genocidal mission. It's a genocidal mission, or it's a way of filtrating, you know, just trying to bring some Russians, in fact, some trying to annex forcefully Ukraine as part of Russia. So he's the only one that can be appeased. He's the only one that can be spoken to. He's the only one that they can appeal to. Erdogan, US, and everything. And then you are talking about US playing double role. Actually, I agree with you that this international system it has inherent contradictions, which all the parties, the US, the major powers essentially, which they are exploiting, you know, to their own advantage and everything. And then you don't forget, the United States has already said it out, that their objective, or what they actually, the expected outcome of this war, what they expect to be the outcome of this war, is to weaken Russia, either to weaken them in terms of their capabilities, or to weaken them as a nation, or to weaken them in whatever way, economically. So nobody understands that phrase, that their objective or their objective or desire is to see that Russia is weakened. Now, Russia, as far as I'm concerned, is engaged in this war as a wasteland, based on certain agenda. And that is the wasteland agenda, because it cannot continue to accommodate an arrogant nation, or an arrogant president presiding very close to it, and he will not listen to what he is saying, or he would not take instructions from Russia, and would continue to take instructions from the United States, which is a far neighbor. So now he is, and then don't forget, Putin has one problem, and the problem is that he envies seriously the American presidency. He doesn't like the kind of arrogance that that the US presidency exhibits in the world system. So he also wants to contend. He wants to compete for influence. He wants to compete for attention. He also wants to be seen all over the world as somebody that should be reckoned with. He enjoyed this kind of influence and status when Trump was there, because he virtually subordinated Trump. But unfortunately, the Democrats, or let me say Biden now, cannot be subordinated, because these are people who knew what they did when the Soviet was falling, or when the Soviet was about to fall, when they had problems economically. But in 1989, you know, during when the Cold War was about to end. So they knew how much they have pumped into Russia's economy. They knew how much they have given to Russia so that Russia will not fall. And then Putin now came. Yes, based on some of these rapprochement and everything, he interacted with most of the nations, and then he blinded them in a way as to distract them, so that they will continue to buy his oil. So when he had garnered sufficient funds to execute his plan, and then to see that it will be very difficult. But unfortunately, just like the first speaker said, that when the effect or aftermath of this war starts coming up, he is going to suffer. He will definitely suffer, because all these things will not have immediate effect. They have long-term effect, you know, economically. And then it's going to affect, and then possibly by the time he will have left office, so he will not even bother about reconstruction, because even economically, Russia itself needs reconstruction. It's only that Ukraine needs physical and rehabilitation and everything. They need reconstruction in terms of their physical, in terms of the destruction of some of their buildings and everything. But Russia itself will have to reconstruct, need image reconstruction. needs social and even economic reconstruction. Because not only economically, because socially, for instance, World Cup, they have been edged out, they have been removed, they have been banned. And also, some of these, the Wimbledon now, they will not play. Some of these things will have, you are becoming a pariah state, and it will not correlate with its image as a world power. A world power that is shrinking in terms of image and status is going gradually. The only thing that is sustaining that image of world power, that is making Russia to still feel that is a world power, is the nuclear capability. The absence of nuclear capability, Russia will have become a pariah by now. But for as long as you still have the nuclear capability, you still have the impression that you are a world power. So that is the point. But I'm telling you, economically, socially, in very near future, very soon, in the next 6 months or so, the economy of Russia will continue to fall. Yes, India may increase its import of oil. China may do all this. Some of these nations can continue to, but there is no way to not tell. Don't forget, we are talking about Germany, leaving, Poland, not buying. We are talking of the entire EU severing relations, stopping to buy its oil. It's going to have, and gas, it's going to have a lot of economic effect on it. So
that of course is the situation, Professor Thomas. We've completely run out of time. Yes. I want to thank you so much for your perspective this morning. Professor Dr. Thomas is of the International Relations Department at Lagos State University. Thank you for your time this morning.
You're welcome.